Hello,
Henry,
Cameron.
how's it
It's
going
Henry.
here? Yeah, not
Oh,
too
I'm
bad.
good. How are you
First
doing?
things first, can I get you to record a thing for the radio? This is Henry, you're listening to 8 Triple C kind of thing.
H triple
All
C?
right. Can you say, can you
No,
say,
I'm asking.
this is
Is it
Henry
H?
Rollins and you're listening to 8 Triple C Community Radio on 104.2 FM, Rock on Alice Springs and Rock on Tennant Creek.
That's a lot for a guy who's been talking for the last 9 hours. What I need to do is properly understand the name of the station. Hold on, is it in front of me? Hold on, and then I can get it
Okay,
done
okay.
from there. Hold on, I'm looking at an itinerary where I can read it.
8CCC.
Ah, eight. No, no, I got it. It's in front of me. Okay. And so, 8 Triple C Community Radio in Alice Springs. And what's the name of your show? Or am I just doing a
The
general
Punk
ID?
Tree Hour is the name of the show.
The
The
Punk
Punk Tree
Trio?
Hour.
Punk
Yeah.
Tree Hour. Okay, I'll see if I can keep this together. Hello, wonderful listener. My name is Henry Rollins, and you are listening to 8 Triple C Community Radio in beautiful Alice Springs. And this is the Punk Tree Show. Please stay tuned.
Amazing. Thanks.
Thank
Um,
you.
okay, so I'll start the interview now, yeah? Okay.
Sure.
You're listening to the Punk Tree Hour on 8 Triple C Community Radio, broadcasting live on the airwaves and across the World Wide Web from Alice Springs and Tennant Creek here in Central Australia. And today we have a very special guest on the show who some listeners might know from his TV appearances on the likes of Sons of Anarchy or Unsolved Mysteries. Some of you might know him for his spoken word shows that he's about to tour Australia with. Some of you might know him from the Rollins band, and some of you might not even know of him at all. But personally, I know him from being the singer of the 80s hardcore band Black Flag. So all the way from the United States of America, it's none other than Mr. Henry Rollins, and we have him here on the phone right now. How's it going, Henry? How's your time in Australia been so far?
Uh, it's been fantastic thus far. Thanks for asking.
You came here up to Alice Springs in 2016, was it?
I
What do you
believe so,
recall
yes.
from your last visit, and what made you want to come back out to this remote part of Australia?
Well, I want to come out again because I was offered a show. And that's kind of the beginning and end of it. I like doing shows. It's what I do. And I'm loath to turn down any offer that comes my way. And so when the I got asked, you want to do another show in Alice Springs? I said, if they'll have me, absolutely. And I'm not exactly remembering how that show went. The ones that tend to lodge in the memory are the ones that go badly. You know, there's a drunk at the show, the PA falls over, something like catches on fire, something like that. Clouds of locusts fill the sky. But most of the time, the shows go pretty well. And I just kind of file them because there's one the next night, the night after, etc. So I'm not remembering any turbulence or disturbance from the Alice Springs show in 2016. What I do remember is what seemed to be interesting matter on the ground, like a lot like volcanic matter. Was I right about that?
There's no
It just
volcanoes
seemed like
around
a
here, no.
no, but there's like the soil seemed interesting, like clay based. It just didn't seem like other parts of Australia I had
Yeah,
been
it's
to.
quite uniquely. You couldn't really mistake it for anywhere else. That's true. Maybe the Grand Canyon or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
and I'm forgetting exactly what it looked like, but I do remember. I'm like, okay, this is different. So I'm not exactly remembering what I looked at. I just remember it was
Ah,
noticeably
yeah.
different.
And are you getting around by car or by plane this time?
Both actually. We'll be renting a car if we're within 100 kilometers of like a few shows, and then when we have to make a large move, like to Perth tomorrow, we'll be
Oh,
going to
yeah.
the airport.
I saw a documentary you made a few years ago where Mercedes gave you a truck to drive around Australia in, and it took you on a bit of a quest to a few off the beaten track places like Mount Isa and that kind of stuff. And the whole subject
Yeah.
matter of it was to kind of analyze typical Australian blokey toughness, I suppose, and explore like what it means to be tough. What was the motive or
Yes.
spark behind that for you, and what did you learn or take away from that journey?
Well, Mercedes-Benz offered me this chance to, kind of get into the Australian male id of the tradie or the working man, and the idea of toxic masculinity. Like my country is up to its eyeballs in it, and I'd like to learn so I can do something to neutralize it in my own way. And so when they offered me this opportunity, I said yes, because it was going to get me to parts of Australia I'm probably not going to get to otherwise. And so I said yes to it and I went for it. And what I thought would be a fairly interesting and informative bit of work ended up being really cathartic and really, really interesting and quite emotional. Because, I met like gay men who were afraid of being ostracized from their town if they came out. And one tried to kill himself because he just didn't want to face scorn. And luckily, he's a rotten suicide artist and he didn't win. He failed and he's still with us. Wonderful guy. And he was one of our best interviews because he really got bent out of shape just because of the ways in some parts of this country. And it's not for me to put down anyone in Australia, but no one should be made to want to kill themselves because they're gay. I mean, come on. We know too much. Like that shouldn't be something that someone's compelled to do. And so it was a really educational bit of work, and I'm grateful for the opportunity. And so it didn't really teach me much about myself or anything. It's just interesting hearing these men be brutally honest. You could tell they were really pushing it. Like you could tell it was difficult for some of them to talk about this stuff because they're told by their fathers and their fathers' fathers, you don't talk about these things. You just grimly go out to the field and do your work. And we got them to open up, and it was fascinating.
Yeah, I find it kind of odd that the likes of Mercedes would even want to sponsor something like Henry Rollins making a documentary. Like, do you remember when a few years ago when that car company Scion, which was owned by Toyota, started releasing records by bands like The Spits or Lecherous Gaze or Phobia, Municipal Waste, the Melvins, all of that kind of stuff. Like, I just think it's a bit absurd. Like, when did their marketing team start looking at punk rockers and grindcore fans thinking, right, this is the new demographic we have to start marketing towards. These are the people who are going to buy brand new vehicles fresh off the production line and they're going to buy them from us. Like, it's like they don't really see how
Yeah, well,
conflicted or weird that is. Or would you have any thoughts on being on the receiving end of that sort of corporate sponsorship yourself, coming from a more DIY punk background?
oh well, Scion came after me really hard to be a spokesperson, to do their voiceover for their commercials, and I passed. And maybe that was all part of that. People in marketing come up with all kinds of ideas. Like someone at Mercedes Benz said, let's get Henry Rollins. And I'm sure everyone in the boardroom said, Henry who?
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, the main guy said, no, no, he's really the guy for this. If you want to have any integrity with this project, because you guys are pushing it, being a luxury car company, trying to be all about the people, you're going to need someone to really get it across. And so when I got the offer, I said, whose bright idea was this? And I actually met the guy. He goes, it was me. And he encountered quite a bit of static at first, but by the end of it, the higher ups went, you were the guy for the job. Thank you very much. I said, you're welcome. And I left.
Yeah, right. I saw you met up with Briggs, the rapper, on that documentary, and he gave you one of those Black Flag shirts that's like a mashup of the Black Flag logo and the Indigenous flag. Yeah, I see a good few
Yes.
kids getting around the town in those shirts, and I've heard you mention in interviews before that Greg Ginn more or less gets all the money for anything Black Flag related, and there's been ongoing copyright
Well, he
battles
owns the
over the
band.
Indigenous flag since the mid 90s, so you'd wonder how the money for the shirts gets divided up. I hope it goes towards some Indigenous organization anyway, but did you ever find yourself in any legal battles over royalties, as a lot of older punk bands seem to do that, you know?
Well, well, no, because Greg Ginn never bothered to pay me once for any record I ever did with Black Flag until he sued me a few years ago. He was suing members of that band Flag, like Black Flag members who made their own Black Flag band. So he sued them, and he joined me in. And I'm not in that band, but he sued me anyway. So suddenly I'm being served papers in my driveway, and so the case went to court, And the judge found out that Greg Ginn has never paid me royalties on, like, I don't know, 5 or 6 albums in forever. And he went, "Oh, Greg, you're in a thing called breach. So let's figure out how much money you're going to pay Henry Rollins." And they came up with an estimate because Greg, doesn't keep records of things. So they had to come up with an estimate of what he might owe me. And I think they gave me 10% of the estimate. And the check came in, and I was making a movie in Toronto, and my manager called. She said, "You're not going to believe this. A check came in from that court case." I said, "Well, let's frame it." And, like, because it'll never clear. It's for a lot of money. And I said, "Let's just, put it, like, take it to the frame shop and just, we'll make it into art." She said, "Oh, no, no, we're going to deposit this." I said, "He doesn't have it. Like, he can't pay that. It's a lot of money." The check cleared. Who knew? And since he got basically smacked down in court, he has to account to every Black Flag member every 6 months. And all of us, depending on our length of time in the band, now get a cut of the merchandise. So Greg basically, by joining me into the lawsuit, woke up the sleeping elephant, and it stepped on him, because I was quite happy to never get any royalties and just go on my merry way. Although many people said, "Dude, go get paid." And I'm like, "Nope, I don't care. It's just, I don't want to go backwards." But I had to, because I was summoned into court, and I ended up, it went my way. I just wish he had left me
Yeah,
alone.
yeah, it totally
I
backfired
don't
on him,
really.
didn't it?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I just, you know, I like the guy. He gave me a real break in my life, and he hates my guts since about 1986. And so I don't know him at this point. I haven't seen him for 100 years. I haven't seen him since Reagan was president, and I don't know what he gets up to. So I'm busy. It's not really of
Yeah,
my interest.
because I see the current incarnation of Black Flag will be playing down in Tasmania around the same time as you're going to be doing a show there, but I suppose you won't be going down to see it.
Well, I probably have a show the next night or travel, but no, I don't. I'm not interested in going into the
Yeah,
Wayback
yeah, yeah.
Machine. Well, once was enough
Yeah.
for me.
I heard you're a big fan of Australian punk. Are you up to date with current bands, or you're more into stuff from the 70s or 80s, or?
Oh no, I was at a record store in Melbourne the other day and bought a whole bunch of new records. And I was talking with some people from some Australian bands I play quite a lot on my radio show. I was talking to members today of Blonde Revolver and someone else, and I play them on my show, and they're really, really good. And so I try to keep up as best I can. There's a couple of record stores here that, like, let me know what's going on, and I keep in touch with labels like Anti Fade, and they keep me in the loop on things. So I do my best.
Yeah, a friend told me that you're quite the record collector to the point where, at the current rate that you buy albums, you wouldn't even have enough time to listen to all of them before you die. Is that true?
It, it, I've got about, believe it or not, about 10 feet of shelf space taken up of LPs I haven't played yet. And so I am going to do my level best to somehow chew through those before I'm dead by October. So, especially in a touring cycle when I'm simply not home very much, it's difficult. It's easy to acquire records, but when you're home for a couple of weeks, it's hard to calm down enough to actually sit and listen because I'm just waiting to leave again. So it's kind of hard to stop,
Yeah,
vibrating.
I heard that Jello Biafra from the Dead Kennedys is at the point where he has a whole other house just to keep his music collection in. Would you say you're in a similar situation?
No, all of mine, I've especially built room that, carpenters came in and built shelf space. I venture I might have a bit more acreage than Jello, but there's like a few things in the world he doesn't know. He's a really smart guy. I've known him many years, and his knowledge of records is ridiculous. I'd be personally afraid of that record collection.
I read recently that you produced an album for Charles Manson while he was in jail, and I'm really curious as to how all of that came about. Please tell me everything.
Well, his lawyer, Paul Grossack, was sending a C60 and a C90 of music he had written and performed in Vacaville. This is in the mid 1980s, and he sent it to Touch and Go Records, SST Records, and Greg and Chuck, who owned SST, wanted to put, some music out if it was any good. And so they were busy working on projects. They said, listen to the Manson music and see if it's any good. So I took the tapes back to this shack I was living in, and I listened, and I thought the music was really good. It was clear enough. It's like solo acoustic, vocal
Like, who would you
acoustic
compare it
guitar.
to? Like Woody
But
Guthrie or
yeah, it's just kind of folky, rootsy, rambling. It wasn't like super together, but it wasn't super not together either. And he wasn't an untalented person. And so I took the project on, and I basically took these two cassettes. I wrote a bunch of notes as to like in points and out points, because it would be like fade ins and fade outs, into an album length master. And I made my notes. I wrote Manson. I said, "Hi, I'm kind of your producer." And, I don't really know the guy. And he wrote me back, and he said that he had just seen me on MTV, and that I looked like him, and that we must be brothers from different mothers. And I said, well, probably not. But that started several years of him writing to me and sending me photos and drawings and artwork, which I still have. And so I got the record edited on quarter-inch tape. We took it to K-Disc, and it was mastered. And 6 test pressings came out, at least 6. I've got one of them. And then the LA Times found out that we were going to release a Charles Manson album, and they did an article about it. And that's when we started getting death threats. And our leader, Greg Ginn, said, we're not going to do it, because like he didn't like the death threats. And so the album was dropped. And Manson wrote me a very angry letter, like, you ripped me off. I never liked you guys. And I had to explain to him, which is kind of complicated, explaining something to a pretty crazy guy, that I'm on SST. Like Black Flag is on SST. However, I am not SST. It's owned by two guys in Black Flag. I have no ownership and no traction. So it's not my decision. And once those two guys have made their decision, that's done. And of course, he just told me to go screw myself, and that was it. And never heard from him again. And so the record, I think, has been bootlegged. It's probably on the internet. But I thought it was good. And ethically, was it right to want to put a record like that out? I don't know. Um, would I do it as a 62-year-old man? Probably not. But I was like 22 at the time, and I went, I'll edit the damn thing, and I did. Basically, I took my orders and I
so
did
you
the
just
work.
started getting letters from him from jail? Yeah, well.
Yeah.
My friend Tommy Gunn in Melbourne, he says you've ordered music from him before, and his question for you was, what's the most you've paid for an American Tapes or John Olsen release, and what's your favorite one? Because he knows you're a big fan of the American Tapes. He was saying they're more or less like
I
sculptures, and you can't even play those tapes.
Yep. Well, it's the sculptural early AM stuff that has cost me the most, but never more than a few $100. I think what's cost me the most is some of John's paintings. We're talking about John Olson. Um, and I bought most of my Olson artwork from John. And and he's very, he makes it pretty well priced. But I've never paid more than a few $100. But with a label that has over 1,000 releases, it can add up. And I've got, out of 1,000 releases, I've got about like 970 pieces of American Tapes
Yeah, well.
stuff. And I've played everything that could be played. I've played it.
You did a
And my favorite thing, I have no idea. I mean, there's so
yeah,
much
yeah.
of it.
You did a duet with Cyndi Lauper recently. How did that come about? Was she a diehard Black Flag fan?
We're mutual fans of each other, and so her manager wrote my manager and said Cyndi would like Henry to be on her Christmas special, her big benefit show, and the money goes to LGBTQ homeless kids in the U.S. And I said, wow, I'd love to be a part of this. And so my manager said, what do you want to do? And I said, I don't know. I'm not the idea person, but my manager is. She's great. She said, I've got an idea. I said, what is it? She said, you and Cindy and her band, you do a duet of Rise Above by Black Flag. And I could see it, me in my old man clothes and her in her tutu and her combat boots. I'm like, yeah, it'll be a smash hit. And so we proposed the idea to Cindy's manager, who sent it to Cindy, who texted back a 2-word answer. The second word of the answer was yeah, and you can guess the first word. And so it was on. And so a few days later, her band learned the track. We had we had rehearsal in Los Angeles, and she was great. Like, she's really fun. I hope I don't mess up the song. I'm like, you'll be fine. And like, she's a stone cold pro. And we rehearsed it, and we did it on the night. It came off well. And I'm sure there's photos on the internet. And I'm sure Greg Ginn is like not all that pleased.
Well,
But
maybe he gets royalties out of it.
we raised the money. We raised the money. We did the thing, and it was a lot of fun.
You're a friend of Glenn Danzig, yeah?
Not really. I haven't seen Glenn for like 20 years. He was friendlier to me in the 80s, and I saw him somewhere maybe in the early 2000s, and he was nominally friendly. But past that, I don't know where he lives. I don't have his phone number, so um, I I can't say that I really know him. But when I was younger, I'd run into him quite often when I was in Black Flag and he was in the Misfits. But then, when he became a solo guy, I'd see him less and less. So it's been many years since I've seen Glenn.
What's your favorite Misfits song?
Wow. Uh, in the Doorway. It's a perfect like
Will
80
you sing
second
us a bit of
song.
it?
No, but good
Who would
try.
win a WWF wrestling match between you and him?
Well, it's choreographed, so who can, the powers that be
Yeah,
tell
but
you
who
who's
do
going
you
to
think
win.
would win?
But oh, Glenn
And what
probably.
about in a game of Scrabble? Who would win that?
I don't know how to play it. Is
But
that the one with
you're good with
the little
words.
blocks of wood or have
Yeah,
letters?
letters. You got to make words with it.
Well, well, he's a very intelligent guy, and so I wouldn't be able to tell you who would win.
What about a hot dog eating competition? Who would win out of both of you?
Okay, sir, you need to stop with the stupid fucking questions. I'm really tired.
Okay, all
How
right.
about that?
Are you going to New Zealand on this tour?
Cool.
You know where that is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
New Zealand? Yeah, it's next door to Australia. I've
All
been
right.
there
What
a
did you
couple of
think of it? You
times.
like it?
Yeah, I like it enough. No one ever threw a trash can at my head, so it's been fine so far.
What's the most bizarre experience you've had on this continent? Yeah.
Most bizarre? Wow. I can't think of anything that was this bizarre, really. It's been kind of straight ahead, interviews and shows and records, and I leave. I've had some bizarre experiences like shooting documentaries and stuff, but never, I can't remember anything in Australia.
You used to work in a Haagen-Dazs ice cream stand. What's your favorite ice cream flavor?
Vanilla,
What's your favorite Australian animal?
the fruit bat.
What are your thoughts on the Anti-Nowhere League?
I like that one song. It was a cover, right? Streets of London. Like that's not. It's not even one of their songs. I thought it was. I like that 1/7 inch with "So What" on one side and "The Streets of London" on the other.
Have you ever met Gigi Allen?
One time, 1985 in Boston, he asked me for an autograph, and then the next time I heard of him, he was wanting to kill me,
What for?
which was, yeah, and very lucky he never was in my presence after he had said that, because I don't think he would have had a good afternoon.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, you and him in a WWF
I
thing.
probably
Yeah, yeah,
I, well, I don't do WWF, son. I do
yeah.
street fighting. I don't know if you've done much of that, because I sure enough have. And I bet you I'd probably still be wearing both of his ears on a leather thong around my neck.
What's your favorite band of all time?
The Stooges.
Nice. Um, Okay, I think we'll wrap that up
Thanks.
here. I know you've been doing interviews all day, but yeah, thanks so much for being on the show. It's an honor to have you here.
All right,
Yeah,
man.
and I guess I'll see you when you're in town. Right, he just hung up. You can catch Henry's spoken word show on his Good to See You tour next Friday, the 9th of June at Araluen Arts Centre at 8 p.m. Tickets to all cities are on sale through the Frontier Touring website, and tickets to the Alice Springs show are available there or through the Araluen website.